Perfect. So we always start the podcast with a simple question. That is, what is your Calgary story?
Well, I arrived here January 1st, 1989, to fulfill a lifelong dream of, playing in the NHL. And I think it was January 2nd or 3rd, I played my first NHL game against the Quebec Nordiques. And I remember, stepping onto the ice at the Saddle Dome that night and just filled with excitement. And, there was nothing better than at that time, I think a sold out building in Calgary was about 20,000 people. So, and I'd never really experienced playing in front of that many people before, but, I think right from day one, when I arrived here, I guess in 1987, played my first couple exhibition games, the fans fell in love with me and I fell in love with the fans. And, it was 11 and a half year love affair here in Calgary. And, I think, from Harley and Doc and BJ and all the other owners at that time, their leadership, put together this amazing Cliff Fletcher, Al McNeil, Al Coates, Doug Risebrow, Terry Crisp, you name it all. They put this amazing team together that you maybe only see once, every decade. And, we went on that magical run in 1989, culminating with a Stanley Cup victory in the Montreal Forum. And, I always say, I couldn't have been mentored by a better group of people, as a young man, which really kind of set me up for the rest of my career and not only that, but the rest of my life. Yeah, it was an incredible experience. I'm a Western Canadian kid, so, Calgary, felt like home almost immediately with the people and what I loved about being in Calgary and playing for Calgary was, not only were you expected to be a great hockey player, but you were also expected to be, a great person and a great human being, and getting involved with, causes and charity work and all that. And that's probably the biggest reason why I chose at the end of my career to move back to Calgary, was because of the fact that, I would say there's probably no place in the whole entire world that supports causes the way Calgarians do. I started in the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, and then I went to the Crohn's Foundation, and then ultimately I created my own charity here in town called the Breaking Free Foundation. And so, what I learned through those experiences was just, the quality of people that live in Calgary, the entrepreneurs, the risk takers, and that's right up my alley. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and it was a perfect fit, for me. And like I said, some of the people that I met in these different organizations, become lifelong friends and acquaintances. And it's been, I consider Calgary my home, more than maybe Oxbow or Russell, Manitoba, where I grew up, because this is where I spent the majority of my life now, is in Calgary. I've been here, 89, it's 30 plus years, I've lived in Calgary. And so, I love the city, love the people. And, it's been, like I said, it was kind of a match made in heaven, that I came here and had success as an athlete. And then, post career, I probably had more success off the ice than I have had on the ice.
Yeah, it's beautiful to hear that, because it's kind of a reoccurring theme with this podcast is, people coming from all different places, and really just echoing that same sentiment, right? Like just that sense of community. And yeah, so it's really good to hear that from you as well.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what you said about the people. It's so true. A friend of mine, Anne, we were talking the other day, and a friend of hers flew in here she had a few days off. This is back before the lockdowns and everything. Flew in because they had a few days. She toured the guy all over Calgary, and he's a world traveler. And she says, like, what do you think? What do you think? She goes, and he goes, well, I don't know if I'm in love with the architecture of the city. He goes, but I'll tell you what, you have the most beautiful people that I have ever met. And I think that's really what helped me also to fall in love with this city, even though, for many years, Edmonton was my city of trade. It was my city of commerce. It's Northern Saskatchewan. We always went to Edmonton. Mm-hmm. And then I started coming down here for business, and I was still a solo parent, had raised my kids alone up in Beaumont. And after coming here a little bit, I'd go back up to Beaumont. It was always like, oh, you guys, Edmonton's a pothole. You got to come to Calgary. They got this going on. They're doing that. They got this, And it was really about you're right, Theo. It was about the people. And I think that we're a magnet that way. And I mean, you've written the books on adversity, and I think Calgary's facing a lot of adversity right now. And I think it's people like us stepping up.
I think the whole entire world's facing adversity, and and it's all based in trauma, right? Every single issue we have in society starts with trauma, and we've done a really poor job of, creating a space for people to be able to talk about their trauma. And there's so much stigma attached to, the space that I live in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week it's really time to get rid of the stigma and acknowledge the fact that the reason why we're in this place today is because of trauma, and there isn't enough skilled people for the amount of trauma, and so I do my very best every day to be there for whoever needs an ear, some compassion, some empathy, some understanding, so they don't feel alone. Because I would say the majority of people, really do feel alone. Like they have nowhere to go. They have nobody to talk to. Nobody will understand. And so, for the last 13 years, I've tried to create that space, for people. COVID-19 is the most traumatic thing that's happened since World War II. And, the trickle down effect that COVID-19 is going to have on humanity is absolutely going to blow your mind.
I agree with you. I always said from day one, A, it affects everyone, but B, the two most at-risk groups are seniors, because having worked in that community, isolation is the silent killer of seniors. They've already lost so much, and then you put them into further isolation without family or friends, it's deadly. And the other one, is our children. Putting them into isolation, when they're at that developmental stage of their life, growing relationships, interacting with others, the generational effects of this are going to be huge. I have a question for you, because you're so immersed in, that whole world of helping others and mental trauma and physical trauma. Is there anything that comes to mind about what a city like Calgary could or should be doing to better deal with it? Because I agree with everything you've said. I've actually talked to lots of MLAs, and I've been very critical of the amount of money that we've spent on healthcare and how little has actually gone to mental health. It's embarrassing. It's a joke. But I would love your perspective on it, Theo.
Well, so I've done every kind of therapy known to mankind. And, I've spent $1 million on therapy. Okay. And probably done 10,000 hours of different modalities or whatever. And, the help space has priced themselves out of the market. So, the people that are really skilled in this space, the people who really need them can't access these people. And so what I've discovered, the most effective and cheapest therapy is a little thing called group therapy. Okay. Because it doesn't cost anything, right? It doesn't cost anything to get a bunch of people in a room, use vulnerability, so storytelling, to create that safe space. And then once you have that safe space in that room, people just start popping up and talking about, what happened to them, right? And so, I think social media and, technology have really squashed community, right? Before social media, we went to the rink to, or the gymnasium, or, the soccer field, or whatever, the baseball field, to get our fix of relationship, right? And, relationship to me is the biggest piece to this. Is, when you create trust and through relationship, right? Because I was abused in relationship, right? And so how am I going to heal? Well, I got to heal in relationship, right? And to me, that's the spiritual piece that, is very lacking in our society. They've closed down the churches, the rinks have been closed, everything's been closed because they know that we are, we need that, face to face, in the same space, relationship with people. And so, the group collective approach to healing, I believe is what is so needed. And, that's why I created the Breaking Free Foundation, is because we do group therapy sessions, as much as we can. We haven't had a whole lot of opportunities. We're talking on Zoom, which is, it's okay, but it's not the same as, being in the same room. And so, I've said to many politicians, give me $1 billion and I'll solve the mental health crisis in Canada, because, I know what's needed, and I know what steps need to be taken on a bigger scale.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so impactful. And, everything you've said just makes so much sense. There's still so much stigmatization around it. And I've said this for years, if I'm out with my friends and I slip and I trip on the curb and I break my arm, the bone's sticking out, everybody takes me to the hospital.
Yeah.
If I'm walking down the street, with my friends and I'm in a bad mental state, well, everybody just, looks the other way, and we don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. They don't want to acknowledge it. It makes everyone in the room uncomfortable. And to get past that, I think in some areas, society's getting better and more knowledgeable of it. But I think that the conversation isn't there. I think that the medical prescriptions may be there to give pills, but I don't think that the conversations are there. But yeah. I don't have a fraction of the experience that you have.
Well, Big Pharma owns mental health. Okay,
Yes.
They own it, right? And until we, get rid of Big Pharma, nothing's going to change, right? And I understand that there are certain types of mental health issues that do need medication, but not all, right? Yes. And general practitioners should never be prescribing antidepressants, because they basically, in their degree, they only do maybe 10 hours of talking about medications and mental illness. And so, but what I found is, there's sort of an underground movement happening called holistic healing. And, I've surrounded myself with some of the most, intelligent people in that space. And I would say holistic healing is, in the future going to have the biggest impact on people overcoming, mental illness.
I understand you have a Métis background, and myself and my partner do as well. And I was wondering, do you draw on that influence with your activism and in general with your spirituality?
Yeah, 100%. I've been to 420 of the 630 First Nations communities in Canada since my book came out. And, and what was interesting was, I was there to help them sort of heal. And what happened was the reverse, as they gave me back my life spiritually, because I started to, talk to elders, talk to the spiritual leaders, hang around with the medicine men, and, really sort of submerge myself in spirituality, the indigenous spirituality. And, I say this probably on a daily basis, that the greatest untapped resource of medicine is in the indigenous community, because they do spirituality better than any group that I've ever come across in my whole entire life. And the healing process is a 3-step process, right? It's physical, emotional, and spiritual, right? And to me, the greatest strides that I've made in my healing journey is when I really grasped onto the concept of spirituality, right? Because it's, I'm connected to something greater than myself, right? And I'm not running the show, right? I'm not running the show. And when I'm spiritually connected, I'm never alone, right? I'm never alone. And then when I participate in ceremony, that takes me to the next level of consciousness that I need, moving forward. And it's been my greatest guide. The grandfathers, grandmothers, and the creator push me in the direction that they want me to go. It's not the direction that I want to go. It's the direction that they want me to go. And I trust in that process, because, what is it? I have this really cool app on my phone that tells me how many days I've been sober. So 5,770 days ago, I surrendered, and I turned my will and my life over to the care of, the universe or God, Allah, Buddha, Jehovah, whatever the hell you want to call it. I turned my will and life over to the care of that. And, I got out of the way, and as soon as I did that, my life really, really started to change, and it became more defined. It became more inspirational. It became more, of everything that the trauma that I'd survived in my life kind of put a brick wall in front of me. And I think I smashed through the trauma brick wall, September 18th, 2005. And, I got out of the driver's seat and got in the passenger seat and just said, you know what, you take over. I'm not going to question anything. And I've tried to live that way, for those 5,770 days. And, sure enough, I'm living my true purpose now, what I was really meant to be doing,
Was there a particular event that occurred, back in September of 2005, or was just a culmination, a fulcrum point that you
No, I knew I was going to die, and I didn't want to die. Right. And that was, sort of what happened was, I should have been dead already, but, here I was still alive, but, just coping. I wasn't living, I was living in my past, and I really became a victim. I played the victim role really well, but it wasn't getting me anywhere. It wasn't getting me to peace, joy, happiness, and serenity, which is the ultimate goal in any type of healing endeavor, right? Is peace, joy, happiness, and serenity. And so, that started me on this path. And then it was unbelievable. The people that started showing up, just random people showing up, who had more wisdom, who had more knowledge than I did, started showing up, and I sort of Velcroed myself to these people, and started to learn, and I did what they told me to do. I didn't question it, I just did it, and when I did it, I started to feel better, and I got further and further away from my trauma experience, that I was living in for the majority of my life.
It's refreshing to hear it because, I think just this type of conversation is like you said, it's really missing, like just the idea of a holistic approach. You don't hear about it. And, rather than that, it's just, it's big pharma and clinical, type of approach. So.
Yeah. Well, and just hanging around medicine men, was just an incredible experience, because they look at this in a way different lens. What they tell me is there's a cure for every single disease out there, and it's just
out there.
It's about 500. It's about 500 meters from here. All these plants that grow, have medicinal purposes, right? And what's interesting is, when I put a big pharma in my body, it's not in its original state. It's a synthetic version of, what's out there, right? And so when I put a synthetic version of something in my body does not know what it is. Doesn't know how to use it, whatever. And then what happens is because we can't get rid of the synthetic pieces of this big pharma medication that we're taking, where does it settle? It settles in our liver, our kidneys, and our intestines. And then we start to have all of these different side effects, right? But when I put, a natural medicine that hasn't been messed with, my body knows exactly what to do with it, right? And my body also knows how to get rid of all the other stuff that's not needed in the process of helping one heal itself, right? And so, but you're not going to hear that. You're not going to hear that because, big pharma doesn't want people to know that what they're giving them is basically poison.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't fit their narrative.
No, exactly. And, it's big pharma is the biggest threat to humankind in the history of our planet.
I have a friend, and I always say his career path wrong, but it's osteopathy, but I've said that wrong. I know it. And Dave Custer. In fact, he's going to be on one of our podcasts. Brilliant individual. I knew him back from my Saskatchewan days when he was about 15, 18 years younger than me as a little kid. He's in Calgary now. We reconnected. And you and him would have an amazing conversation. And we went for a walk in the Eau Claire area here a couple of months ago for a few hours. And we talked about how, the whole industry of medicine has changed, particularly in the last 80 years. 70 years when big pharma got involved. She's like, if you would have gone to a doctor back in 1800s and your shoulder hurt, well, instead of giving you aspirin, they would have actually worked on your shoulder and worked on the muscles and tried to figure out, was there a nerve pinch? Was there a bone chip? Was there something like that? You would get a massage when you went to the doctor because it helped to make your body flow. Yeah. And, he went through, and that's really what he does. And he does some really interesting stuff. I mean, he trains the sniper team for the Canadian National Defense in high elevation and snow conditions. They know how to read snow conditions. He trains the triathlete team for Canada, and he's pedaled bike back and forth from Vancouver numerous times to raise money for clean water and things like that.
Yep.
But having conversations with individuals like you and him and about the holistic path and how it works for our body, he told the story of one of his peers who, on the chiropractic side, was working with an individual whose shoulder, was bothering. They could hardly move their arm anymore. And they did all the chiropractic things. And then this individual really started talking to them about their history. And it turned out that years before, this individual had actually been an alcoholic, so had problems with the liver.
Yep.
So this chiropractic individual, actually, you can reach in, you can massage and work the liver and help to discharge the toxins out of it. And that resulted in full range of motion with their arm.
Yeah.
And whereas, typically now you go to a doctor and you get a prescription for something, and that something affects everything.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and they make sure you get addicted to whatever they're giving you too. So, Big Pharma's, mission statement is from the time you're born until the time you leave, you need to fill as many prescriptions as you possibly can. That's their mission statement.
Yeah.
Right.
I went through difficulties with that, not myself personally, but in my marriage, that happened, and ended up in me being a solo parent because of addictions, and that was all the opiates and all that through Big Pharma, and it was changes people, and not for the better. Yeah.
Well, a perfect. So in the mental health space, what's really happening is our nervous system is, taxed big time, right? Because we live under a lot of stress. And when we live in a high state of stress, we produce a chemical in our body called cortisol. And cortisol is like acid in our body, okay? And eventually what it starts to do is it starts to affect the nervous system, okay? And then we have this amazing chemical in our body called oxytocin, which is the drug of love and connection. And so the pharmaceutical companies knew that we were all fucked up, right? And so they created a drug called Oxycontin, okay? Oxycontin, oxytocin, sound similar? It is, okay? So they created a synthetic version of oxytocin, okay, called Oxycontin. And, when we're in healthy relationships, we're producing a lot of oxytocin, which then sucks up all the cortisol, right? That's why I say relationship is so important in overcoming, whatever it is. And, when I work with people who are addicted to, Oxycontin, heroin, fentanyl, I say, why do you like this stuff so much? Well, they always say, because it gives me the warm and fuzzies. So the drug Oxycontin creates relationship, right? Gives them the warm and fuzzies because they've been abused, abandoned, neglected, all of these things throughout their whole entire life. They discover Oxycontin and they get hooked immediately. Why? Because it emulates all the things that they didn't get early on in their life.
Yeah.
Artificial substitute. Unfortunately.
And it's deadly.
Yeah.
Deadly.
Switching gears a little bit. You popped up on the CBC News website yesterday. So yeah, I don't know how much you can talk about it, but we're curious as to what's going on with the rights to your Hollywood bio.
Yeah, well, we're in the court system now, so it's in the hands of the court system. There's there's a couple items that we think that the other party's not entitled to, and so we have to go through the process. So, but excited that there's a group of people that want to tell my story on the big stage. I think and ultimately, you know, that's what we've tried to do with the stories. We've tried to exhaust every avenue in the entertainment space to get this story out, because, I've had over, I would say, 1 million people since 2009 who have either directly or indirectly told me their Me Too story of sexual abuse. And, well, what's interesting is, and not a lot of people know this, and Alberta is one of the worst places in the world for this, is that child and human trafficking is the biggest enterprise on the planet. Makes $150 billion a year. Okay. And Amazon, is the biggest legitimate business, and child and human trafficking makes $60 billion more than child and human trafficking. And so, and who are the biggest consumers of child and human trafficking? Pedophiles, right? And so, we talk about, we have a systemic racist problem. We have all this stuff. No, we have a systemic pedophile problem on the planet. And nobody wants to talk about it. And these guys are consuming children. There's a little girl tonight in Alberta who's going to get trafficked 10 times tonight. 10 different partners tonight. And nobody's talking about this stuff. It's horrific. And when did human lives stop mattering? When did my life stop mattering? When did your life stop mattering? Where's humanity? Where is it? It's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting that we allow this shit to go on. And we should all be fucking ashamed to our core of who we are as people.
There's no defense.
No
defense against your statements.
Yeah. Well, why not stop it? We know it's happening. The government knows it's happening, and they're doing nothing about it. So what does that say?
Well, it reaches all corners of the room.
Yeah. And the trickle down effect that has on society is mind-blowing. And what was interesting was, I showed up at a Thumbs Up golf tournament in Calgary. They're a small mental health group out of Airdrie. And I don't even know who the mental health minister is, whatever. And, I went up and I shook his hand. He had no fucking clue who I was. So what does that tell you?
Disengaged.
And when, and they gave $100 million to mental health. Okay. So you divide that by 4 million Albertans, that's $80 for every person in Calgary for their mental health.
But AHS budget is $24 billion.
Yeah. But that's not enough, right? Because it costs $200 or $150 to go see a professional, right?
Yeah.
So,
like you were saying earlier, Theo, I think if we allocate more money towards mental health, it would solve a lot of other societal issues. It would make the jobs of policemen, firemen, and paramedics a lot easier as well.
Yeah.
If we just allocate a little bit more to that.
Well, hurt people, right?
Yeah. Oh,
the last generations.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
And you can see that going to school or whatever. Exactly. You know where the sources of the problems are in a classroom.
Yeah.
And all you have to do 99% of the time is look at their household.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And what they're coming from. Right. And so what you said earlier, I think, is just so accurate about, the pandemic and just more hurt coming out of this. I look at all the kids, because I've also been involved in programs where we provided summertime meals to students.
Yeah.
because a lot of kids only get one meal a day and it's at school.
Yeah.
And then, during the summer holidays, what do they get?
Yeah.
Now you add that to what these children have gone through for 16 months, many of them isolated at home for the vast majority of the time, unable to go to school, which is often their escape, the mall, a friend's house, after school activities, all that taken away, put in a home with parents who were already abusive, and now they're only going to be more so because they're facing additional stressors, loss of job, loss of income, locked in a house with a partner they don't like, and the child has no refuge or rescue from that. Yeah, we're on a bad
Any
path
politician who stands up at the podium and speaks into a mic doesn't give a flying fuck. That's the problem. That's the problem. They talk out both sides of their mouth, and, what is the worst addiction to have? What is the worst addiction to have? The addiction to power.
Yes.
And guess what? It's getting played out in real time right in front of us. Right?
I had an interesting conversation. I don't know if you ever heard of a lady named Danielle Smith.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day, having a coffee, and she goes, just, Zane, make me a promise. You're mayor, don't do what 99% of the people do when they get into politics. And that's change.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
I know many individuals who are great people get into politics, and there's something that just seems to change. I don't know if it's that, rock star kind of thing that comes over them or what it is, but almost to a person, it happens. And we've got to break that trend. If we can't break that trend, how are we going to break any of the other trends, Theo?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we need leaders with compassion, leaders with empathy, leaders that are for the people, not themselves, right? That's, perfect example is the idiot in Ottawa, like, honest to God, I don't know how, he could possibly be in that position, because he is as dumb as the day is long. And you can see it, when he gets off script and left to his own defenses, he is a fucking idiot, like of the biggest proportions, and that's the best that Canada has. Come on, come to Calgary,
Yeah.
There's more leadership in this, 100-mile square radius of Calgary. There's more leaders here than in any place in Canada.
I think that, I often say even our own city hall, we sometimes lack leadership. Obviously, I feel that, because if not, I wouldn't be running. And I say, lots of times if people would just look out the windows of City Hall to our downtown core, to our city, I mean, we have some of the most vibrant, visionary, capable leaders in the world. We have the most connected downtown in the world, and that houses some of the most brilliant men and women in the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes we should turn to them and ask for some advice. I think that, there's many, countless individuals downtown Calgary who live throughout the city who have as much passion and love for this city as I do, but they wouldn't go into politics because it is such a,
it's a toxic
environment. You're right.
It's toxic, Well, and here's another thing, Edmonton and Calgary are two of the biggest cities in, Alberta, and we vote on a federal level mostly conservative. Okay, so how the hell do we end up with two liberal mayors, one in Calgary and one in Edmonton? How does that happen? Just a question. Just a question.
You're right, Theo. I talked to my team. I have a brilliant team, including Cal and Simon and many others. And we've dug through the analytics of this, and it's shocking and it's surprising. And we could have another podcast that could be literally hours long on exactly how the political machine within Calgary works. And we need to bring some change to it.
Well, I'm surprised that the media hasn't asked, Iverson and Nenshi what happened at Bill Gates's mayoral meeting, in 2014? Like, what happened there? You know, what
was
did they
discussed?
talk about? What did they talk about? You
What
know
was
what
the
I mean?
agenda?
Yeah, what's the agenda, right? So
Yeah.
you don't have to be brilliant to put the puzzle together. You know, you don't have to be brilliant to put the puzzle. You just ought to be awake. That's it. You know, but when you're traumatized, guess what? You can't think because you're only surviving, right?
Yeah.
And these guys know that the majority of the world is traumatized. And so, you know, whatever they put on the TV, people are going to believe, right? And if you do your own research, because all the information is out there, you just got to go and dig for it. It's very easy to figure out, you know, what's happening.
Yeah, and you know, you being a leader in your own right, Theo, like it's something I personally have been really impressed by in the sense that you have been using your platform to bring forward these issues, because I think, and I'm not a big sports guy. I mean, when I was younger, you were, you know, one of my heroes, of course, and I I see a lot of maybe retired professional players who, you know, that's their thing. That NHL, that was their thing, and it's still kind of their talking point. But I respect so much that you use your platform, and clearly it's a real passion of yours to bring these issues to light. So just
Well, I'm a direct descendant of Louis Riel, and if you know Louis Riel's story,
It's different than what's taught in school.
yeah.
Yeah, I learned it in
This
school.
This guy was standing up for rights for our people, and they fucking murdered him. They murdered him. Treason for standing up for rights for the Métis people. So, you know, and that's saying, well, that's one thing I know about Métis people is we're not afraid of nothing. You know, we have that mixed blood in us, and you know, that mixed blood is sacred. You know, and because, you know, when I was a kid growing up, you know, my family was always talking about, you know, that we were Métis. I had no idea what Métis was, you know. And then I watched that movie, CBC movie about Louis Riel, and I was almost staring at myself in the mirror, because that's the way I felt, you know, that a lot of the characteristics that Louis had were a lot of the characteristics that I had, you know, and I was able to take pride in something, and I was able to belong somewhere, you know. And then the music, right? The music was a big part of my childhood. You know, my grandfather was a fiddle player, and my grandma was a jigger, and my dad played guitar, and, you know, so fondest memories as a child were sitting beside my grandpa, listening to him play the fiddle, you know, because that music just, you know, is part of our DNA and part of our soul. So
Yeah, it resonates with you.
yeah, absolutely.
What are you
Well,
doing
it's
now
funny
with
you
your
mention
music
it.
career? Oh, sorry, I cut you off
Oh
there.
no, I was about to ask the same thing actually, because I noticed that in doing some research, one of your songs actually made it onto Madden 2017, which I thought was really cool because that's
Yeah.
football. But
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting story. And I go to Mario Lemieux's fantasy camp every year. And the first year I went to camp, I was sitting beside this kid from, he lives in Orlando, Florida. And first thing he said to me, he said, I have one NHL record. And I scored 3 shorthanded goals in one game in St. Louis in 1991. And this kid said that he was sitting in the stands the night that I broke this record. And I said to him, I said, what do you do for a living? He says, I build the Madden football game. I was like, wow, how cool is that? And so, you know, we became friends and exchanged numbers, and, you know, I'd get the odd text from him. And then one night out of the blue, he texts me and says, hey, I've been listening to your music. He goes, I love it. he said, would you be interested in writing a song for the Madden football game? And I'm like, yeah, you know, and yeah, I mean, so we wrote the song called Long Shot that's on the 2018 Madden football game. But more importantly, after that project was done, he came back to me and said, you know, can I write a script for a Hollywood version of your movie? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And so he wrote this incredible script. And, you know, I've spent the last probably 4 or 5 years traveling back and forth from LA, meeting with producers and actors and all kinds of stuff. And so, you know, everything's in place. We just need to get rid of the legal stuff. And, you know, it looks like we'll be making, you know, a movie, which is, you know, pretty exciting stuff.
Tell you, everybody I talk to just can't wait for that milestone to happen.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, everything you're doing right now is amazing, but I think that could be one of the things that really, once again, gives you gravitas, gets you out there, and makes people, like we talked about earlier, that they have to stop denying that this is occurring.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Everything that happens along that route, things like your movie, you know, all of that just helps, I think, to move that needle forward, to move.
Yeah. Well, what it does is it allows people who, you know, are carrying around trauma. It gives them the opportunity to finally, for the first time in their life, acknowledge and use their voice, right? You know, and you know, and you know, people ask me, you know, what do you do for a living? I collect people. That's what I do. I collect people, right? And once you turn the light bulb on for them, they never leave. You know, they become a permanent. And not only that, then they become advocates and they become healers themselves, right? Because they're so empowered and they know, you know, pain, desperation, you know, all of these things, they know it. And when you get to the other side of that, you know, that spectrum where you're experiencing peace, joy, happiness, and serenity, you know, you want that for everybody, right?
Yes.
Right.
Definitely.
And you know, what's interesting is, you know, I'm an empath too. So I feel everything. When I walk out my front door every morning back out into the world, you know, I see and feel anxiety. And they say, if you think about the past, that's depression. And if you think about the future, that's anxiety. Well, we don't know what the future looks like. So the whole entire planet is living in a very high state of anxiety because we don't know what the future looks like. And so those who have little faith are the ones that are causing all the damage, right? And, you know, I subscribe to the mantra that God wins. Right. And even though we're going through a very dark period of humanity right now, you know, God wins. And if we have faith, and if we practice spirituality, it gives us the strength to, you know, carry on day to day.
It's a powerful idea. So Theo, I want to be conscious of your time here. I know we're getting close to 11, but I wanted to, just maybe give you a chance to talk about anything else that you're that's on your radar right now, whether it's the Crohn's Foundation or anything else.
Yeah. Well, you know, the 40,000 foot goal of the Breaking Free Foundation is to actually have a physical place, a physical site where all mental health challenges and all the services will be free to anybody who wants them and needs them. And we will take a very holistic approach to mental illness. Because, I believe it's the epidemic. Trauma, mental health, and addiction is the biggest epidemic on the planet. Okay. And like I said, we want to build a community, I've played on some of the most successful teams ever assembled in the history of my sport. So I know how to put a team together, right? I know how to do the team thing. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to create the greatest team ever assembled on the history of the planet, which is trauma, mental health, and addiction, right? And wouldn't it be great if we started this healing center right here in Calgary, and get rid of all of the stigma, get rid of all of the, big pharma messaging, and really, look at it, from the physical, emotional, and spiritual, place and perspective of where it really needs to be, and so there's that. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a Calgarian, so I'm an entrepreneur. So I have lots of irons in the fire. And what's really been interesting in about the last 9 months is that I've had more calls from people and companies in the psychedelic space, because I believe that is the next big thing in mental health, is using plant-based medicines like mushrooms and ketamine and, all of these things, not abusing them, but, using them in a medicinal way. So I'm trying to figure out which company I want to align myself with, because there's so many out there. And, but, the first question I asked all of them, I say, what's your statement on spirituality? What's your statement on, because if you bastardize psychedelics like they bastardized marijuana and all these other things, it's not going to work, right? Because the universe is going to give us these signs all the time, right? And what they're telling us is that psychedelics, once we get through the stigma and educating the population about psychedelics, we have an amazing opportunity, right? And it's not about becoming, the next Mark Zuckerberg or, that person. It needs to come from a place of the heart space, right? This isn't about making money. This is about the universe giving us an incredible opportunity to heal the planet once and for all.
You better not get me started on that, because this has been a big passion of mine for years, and I see so much potential for non-treatable PTSD.
It's unlimited.
Depression.
This is unlimited. This is unlimited. This will wipe out big pharma.
And yeah, do you think that would be tied to the Breaking Free Foundation, or would this be something separate? Okay.
Yeah, no, we would definitely, have all those experts, involved in all of this.
Are you looking at Calgary as the home base where you would like to build a facility?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think these are conversations I'd really like to have with you in the future, Theo, because I'm a big supporter of how we need to change direction with mental health, because it's just, and like we said earlier, with the pandemic and what it's done to our youth, well, to everyone. I don't know of anybody who's come out of this mentally healthier.
Nobody's going to come out of this unscathed.
And I think that was one of the things that our leaders really missed the point of, is that this pandemic, isolation, et cetera, it affected every single person just in a different way. And I got so tired of we're all in this together. No, we're not. We're in this, but in very different manners, different ways to deal with it, and different levels of economy. Yeah. And there are those
we're in survival mode. That's
Yeah.
that's what we're in. We're in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you know, you're not thinking properly, you're not thinking straight, you're just surviving, right? You're coping, right? And I believe there's no reason for us to be in this space, you know? And
Yeah, there's a lot of my friends that I'd love to introduce you to because they share your passion for so many of the same topics.
yeah.
Have
And
these,
you know what? It's not rocket science. It really isn't. You know, the building is a symbol of community, right? You know, and community and team, you know, and nobody talks about that because there's too many egos involved, right? That's why the Breaking Free Foundation isn't called the Theo Fleury Foundation, because it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about me. You know,
Right.
It's about reaching out to the collective people who are struggling out there and saying, you know what, we have a solution. We have a solution. And we want you to be a part of what we're doing, right?
Yes.
We want you to be part of our community. We want you to, you know, to learn with us, right?
Well, Theo, I would love to have further offline conversations
Yeah.
regarding about where you see the future of this going. I mean, I want to be a municipal leader, and this is just a huge portion of properly working with a community.
Yeah. Well, if we can solve this problem, the world will be an incredible place to be if we solve this problem, you know?
It starts, you know, it's that old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Exactly.
And this is an elephant. You know, this is a herd of elephants, but you got to start.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, you know, Simon, I've been so vocal, is because, you know, I don't like, I have compassion for lots of things, but what I don't have compassion for is stupid. I don't have any compassion for that at all. Right. And, you know, we're living in stupidism. That's what we're living in. We're living in, you know, the most, I don't even know what to call it. You know, it's just, well, it's insanity, right? Insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, right? The education system has been in place for, you know, a century, and we're still doing it the exact same way that we've done it 100 years ago. And we're wondering why we're not having success. You know, get rid of the desks, you know, get rid of all that old stuff, because we need a trauma-informed approach to education, you know, because every kid is traumatized. You know, I was one of those kids, right? They expected me to sit in a desk for 8 hours as a traumatized kid. That's not going to happen. So what did I do? I caused chaos and all kinds of crazy shit going on in the classroom because I was traumatized, right? And there was never any acknowledgement, you know, or help me overcome what I was experiencing at home, right? So,
yeah. Well, we don't have a huge voice yet, but we're going to do everything we can to get this message out and you know, try and educate people on these issues, because it's yeah, I think it's overlooked. So
yeah, it's grossly overlooked, you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
What's deliberately in many cases.
yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, I wish you all the best, man. You're on a journey for, you know, change, which is not easy.
I'm doing it because I believe we need entering politics. I'm not a career politician.
Which
doing
is great.
It because I just like you're doing what you're doing, not because you're a psychologist, right? You're doing what you're doing because you see it has to be done.
Yeah.
Same reason that I'm entering this madhouse of a race at a very difficult time, but it's never been needed more.
Yeah. Well, what I do really well is I take all the science psycho babble bullshit and I turn it into plain language so that people can understand. That's what I probably do better than anything else, is I can sit, you know, with an expert and they can talk to me about, you know, all this stuff, and then I can take all that information and you know, portray it in a very
Put it in something that's consumable to the normal person.
yeah.
And that's where politics is often lacking too, because we hear politicians speak and speak and speak, but what's the outcomes?
Yeah, but they're not intelligent people. That's the problem. Like I went to an event in Edmonton a few years ago, and Paul Coffey was there with me, and we were standing on the legislature grounds, and all these MLAs want a picture with me and cough so they can put it on their social media like they're fucking doing something great. And I swear to God, I've never been surrounded by more stupid people in the 4 hours that I was on the grounds than I'd ever come across in my whole entire life. And I was like, how do these people get elected? How do these people get in positions of power? Because they have no business whatsoever, being in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, bad leaderships are bad outcomes.
Yeah.
And look where the world is right now.
I played in the hockey world. You know how many friggin' stupid people are in the game of hockey and it's still a great game? Like, seriously,
Yeah.
Because everybody has, this money ball idea of how to, run organizations. It's all about analytics. Well, I certainly didn't fit in any analytical,
You defied all of the categories.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's where we often fall short in looking at people. We always try to categorize, catalog, and then make round holes fit in round pegs and round holes. But that's not how life is.
Well,
it's not how life is.
Leaders make people believe that they are better than what they are.
Yeah.
That's what a leader does.
We need some inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's
well, Theo,
it's just straight comedy every day watching these guys stroll up to the podium. It's fucking comedy. It's like
it's entertainment without having to pay Hollywood.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And the one thing about stupid is you can't fix it. I learned that in Saskatchewan a long time ago.
Yeah. So stupid. Who was it? Clint Eastwood, or who was it that said that? Oh no, it's John Wayne. And he said, life is hard, and it's harder when you're stupid. Right?
Exactly.
Anyway,
this has been awesome. Thank you guys. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. And
thank you so much, Theo. We really appreciate the time.